I'm Brandon Monroe, and alongside me, as always, is Mark Chavez, and this is the Bernie Breakdown. So, starting off with Friday night, one of our favorites ended up picking up the win. Well, I guess it was my favorite. Ryan Preece, absolutely, maybe not dominating performance. He was hand in hand, probably the best car or truck with Zane Smith for most of the night. Preece did start on the pole. Zane Smith got out front early. Preece ended up taking the lead in stage two, and from there, he pretty much dominated the rest of the way. Able to repeat his win from last year, but it got really close there at the end. Couldn't really see what happened because Fox's coverage is bad as ever. They kept never. I get not having the cameras there, but like they didn't show
it was
anything.
still not as bad as last week.
I don't
Just the
know.
whole flip.
Five laps to go, and we're showing full screen replays when you could see the ticker and Zane
Yeah,
Smith
that's
and
not
Carson
camera work.
Hocevar are
That's
checking like
just
six. That was
that's just
bad. That
this
was
is bad.
bad.
Like they never had a camera of Jessica Friesen's flip. If they wanted to, they could probably show us the last 5 laps of the race. They just didn't. I mean, it's not the first time they've done other. I don't know why, guys. I mean, we missed. They were showing it in a small side by side window, so I guess at least we got to see it. But we missed what was the pass for the win. At least it's the attention point in the Xfinity race for NBC too.
Mm-hmm.
They did show it, and then they showed it immediately after. But I don't remember what replay they were showing. But they barely mentioned how Allgaier's there before he's already passed Allmendinger. They're pretty late, but I will say, I mean, yeah, Priest was your favorite, but that was because I didn't want to pick the same guy as you, and I let you pick him. But our two favorites combined still led 144, the 150 laps in the entire race, and then my dark horse finished third. I'll take that. Carson Hocevar has been pretty solid lately, and we'll talk more about that later. But I want to also just it was obviously a great race for Ryan Preece. He deserves a full-time ride in something. I honestly don't care what it is. I personally am not rooting for him to get the 10. But if it is the 10, so be it. I'm not going to say that he doesn't deserve it. He just deserves to be full-time in something. I think Zane Smith also deserves to move up. I don't know if that spot is there, but I think right now, I think he's the championship favorite.
I mean, yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
Well, obviously, a lot can change between now and then, and a favorite, especially in this format, it's probably like if they get to the final four, still probably more than like realistically 35% to win, maybe 40% to win. So it obviously, I would not be shocked if he ultimately doesn't win it. But if I had to pick a guy right now, which we will do in a couple weeks, it probably is that guy. But it was not a great race for most of the guys on the bubble. The race itself, pretty decent for Derek Kraus, but did incur a 10-point penalty before the race even started. Not the kind of mistakes you could be making when you're preciously on the edge of that bubble trying to get in.
Yeah, I mean, what you were saying about Zane Smith being the favorite, I have to agree. John Hunter Nemechek, him and Ben Rhodes over the last couple weeks have kind of just been taking a step back. I know John Hunter was good at Knoxville, but we're not going to another dirt track. So, I mean, having a top 5 run there doesn't really mean much moving forward the rest of the season. Next couple of races, we have another road course and then a track like Pocono, which is, those are both something you're not going to see for the remainder of the year. So Zane Smith, he's pretty much, other than races where he's had actual problems, I don't really feel like he's struggled at all. So I think it's very safe to say he probably is the favorite.
I want to say there was one race, maybe Texas.
They had something happen at Texas, though, too.
Did they? I can't remember. I feel like there was one race where they just weren't very good, but that still was like a 10th place finish, which is okay if that's what your bad day is going to be.
Right.
But no, as I was saying, like the playoff guys had trouble for sure. Kraus with his penalty, and then Enfinger, DiBenedetto, and Tanner Gray all finished 30th or worse, costing, I think, two of them a shot at pointing their way in, although I think Tanner Gray was probably not going to be able to do it anyway. And put Enfinger in a position where I think he's safe if no one points their way in, but if someone goes out and wins and now he's racing Crafton for that spot, not a spot I'd want to be in. A lot more precarious than he was last week. Yeah, like I said, Zane Smith, solid day. Taking over the points lead with his performance. The first time he's led the points since Daytona.
That's what happens when you have a penalty that gets you DQ'd,
true,
I guess.
True. That is true, but took him some time. He did claw back from it. Now has a point lead, a little bit over 20 points. Certainly not safe, just because anything can happen. He gets in a wreck that's not his fault, which feels far more likely in the Truck Series than the Cup Series.
You saw it with Grant Enfinger on Friday night. He's
And
minding his own business, and
Grant Enfinger, Matt DiBenedetto, and Corey Heim.
Yeah. So.
And now, granted, Corey Heim doesn't affect his playoff chances since he's not running full time.
Does affect the 51 in the owner's points, but we don't really care about that.
Yeah, well, I'm also pretty sure they're pretty solidly in the top 10, I would imagine.
Well, they have the 2 wins too from Heim, so his wins
count. True. So they would have
been locked in.
They're fine.
Yeah.
KBM definitely seems a bit off this year. Not like bad, which is why I think it gets hidden. Corey Heim does have 2 wins. John Hunter has a win. Chandler Smith has a win. But just at the bare minimum, the consistency is just not there.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would not be surprised if they get it figured out come the playoff time. But I still feel like I was thinking about this. For all season, we had like a big 4, I feel, in the Truck Series. I think a bare minimum, Ben Rhodes is no longer part of that.
Yeah, I feel like he really worked his way in there because he was so good at Dirt Bristol, and it just kind of built momentum, and he really hasn't lived up to that.
He had led the points. He had led the points, and they're good at point racing, and they would still have like top 5 runs. But ever since like Dirt Bristol, I feel like maybe honestly the third guy on that team. I think Majeski and Eckes have had more impressive runs since Dirt Bristol, more consistently. But I agree, and I honestly think you almost like don't even include. Like I think it's just in my feeling right now, it's just Zane Smith. Now I don't think John Hunter and Chandler Smith are all that far back, but whereas before, like they were slam dunks to be in the Final 4. Depending on, I think, actually don't know if we'll do another. I don't know exactly when we'll do another round of predictions. But if it is after Road or Mid Ohio, I would not be surprised seeing how that shakes out if one or both of John Hunter and Chandler Smith are not in at least one of our predictions. Just because guys like Hocevar and Majeski and even Eckes, although I don't think he's been as good as those two, have just been so consistent.
I'm just looking for one of them to win at this point.
I feel confident Hocevar will. I don't feel as confident Majeski will. I think we talked about this earlier in the week. He's very much like Sam Mayer-esque. Like they're close, but he hasn't really put together that performance that makes you go, yeah, he's gonna win any day now. I pick Sam Mayer a lot because I like him, and I do think there's a chance that when he wins, it'll just be he goes out there and just crushes it. But like Hocevar is much more like Tyler Reddick, where he goes out, leads a bunch of laps. I didn't do that this weekend, but I mean, Zane Smith and Ryan Preece had the field covered. But goes out, leads a bunch of laps, has had races you could say he lost. Has had 2 this year alone, and there's easily more you could argue. Sometimes his fault, sometimes not, But I mean, that's true for Tyler Reddick as well. And they're just different categories of like guys who are like close to winning,
Yeah, no, I mean I get what you're saying, and like Hocevar, that's probably a good comp for him as Reddick in the Cup Series. I don't really know where I'd put Majeski, and I know Eckes has a win from last year as well, but he wasn't full time. I think a lot of people forget that, and even though he's got that, when you're waiting for him to kind of break through and establish himself. And both those guys, like they're close, but they're not to the level
Eckes,
where Postmar
honestly,
is.
sometimes it's strategy and stuff. Eckes has been closer than Majeski, though.
Yeah, no, I mean Eckes, he could have won Gateway, he could have won Texas. Like
I don't know.
you're talking
It's
about
something like,
Hocevar.
obviously these aren't all at the end of the race, but something like 6, I think the broadcast said, races this year. Passing him was the path for the win, the last
Yeah.
pass for the lead. So I know some of those a lot later than others,
Yeah.
but I would not be surprised if Jose Majeski and Eckes all got a win this year. But just they're racing right now on a week-to-week basis more consistently and more towards the front for in some of the races than either John Hunter or Chandler Smith are, and certainly more than Majeski and Eckes' teammate Ben Rhodes is. So obviously, once the playoffs come, and I don't think they do this, but KBM could absolutely be the kind of team that just does whatever they want during the regular season. I don't think they are, but it wouldn't be the most shocking thing. And we know that John Hunter and Chandler Smith have the talent to get there. So we'll see what comes playoff time, but I don't feel as confident with that Final Four as I did up until like a couple weeks ago, really.
Yeah. Just changing gears a little bit here, because I know it's something we probably touched on a little bit last week, is that 17 truck, because that's something that people want to act like the equipment there is not good based on the teammates of whoever's in that, like Gray or Haley Deegan. This is 2 weeks in a row they've gone out there and won. Is it about time we start like recognizing like that truck as, obviously not to the level of Zane Smith, even though it's
I
the same
think
shot, but good.
at worst case, it is a B truck.
Mm-hmm.
At worst case. And I certainly think it's probably better than that. We've seen respectable runs from other guys that get in, and I think part of the problem is a talent issue. Where like I do think there's like Haley Deegan is probably I think part of it has to be mental here too. And I'm sure if things got better, she'd be able to start running off some top 10s. But she was running like 11th when she had
she
an
wasn't
issue.
running awful there.
Like she was running decent and just something else again. But it's one of those things where obviously it's not her fault. I'd say a majority of the time this year have not been her fault. But it's a product of where she's running. She's running in that what is usually like a traffic jam chaos zone in the truck series, and she's unfortunate that she gets caught up in it a lot of the time. But there's a reason we're not seeing our top tier contenders get caught up in it, because they're ahead of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's even if she was finishing where she runs, she'd still be well outside the playoff picture. I don't want to lose sight of that either.
Yeah.
She would still be well behind everyone else that's in the picture right now. She'd be top 20 in points. I'm pretty confident in that. But even with her issues, like I haven't checked in a while. I do know Ryan Preece is still, obviously, especially now, well ahead of her in points.
Yeah, I mean, Haley Deegan, I don't think she's really sniffing the top 20, and despite only running about like half the races, Ryan Preece is 16th. So actually, he's only 17 points behind Chase Purdy. Different team, but man, that's really pathetic, because that's a Hattori truck, so that's pretty bad.
He has been more consistent lately, but Purdy's ceiling does seem to be like a top 10 occasion. You don't think he has any yet this year.
I like that top 10 occasionally.
Like
That's more like Ankrum. I think Ankrum's probably that.
I mean, Purdy has top 15 finishes, so it doesn't take much more to get an occasional top 10.
That's fair.
But yeah, I don't. Chandler Gray runs better than Haley Deegan, but does suffer from the same thing. Although I definitely feel like Chandler Gray's are a lot more self-inflicted than Haley Deegan's are.
I would agree with that. Just looking through some of the other guys here that had good runs, I think you probably both have them circled. Max Gutierrez, second career truck start, driving for Austin Wayne Self's team. 8th place finish.
That was the team's best finish since Texas in 2020.
It's funny, like, Austin Wayne Self, like it seems like he shows speed every once in a while, and then something happens, and they finish like 25th when he's running like top 12 all race. I I think this really says something about him because I don't remember him ever running like through the field like Gutierrez does, and that was a guy I could never really get like a good read on because like it felt like maybe they're ready to take some type of step, but they never really do. And then you get a kid like Gutierrez in there, who again only a second career truck start and has that type of run. He might have finished a little bit higher if he didn't get loose racing for position there late in the race too. But top 10's a top 10, and he ended up starting 36 because I believe his qualifying time got disallowed. So he, at a track where it was really hard to pass, he was able to move up through the field. So very impressive run by him.
Yeah, I wish we had gotten to see Moffitt in the truck at a not dirt track. Just because that would have given us, I feel like, a better feeling of what this truck is capable of. I do think this says more about Max Gutierrez, honestly, than Austin himself. I don't think that equipment's magically better because they've had other guys in the second truck occasionally, and they don't light the world on fire or anything. But eighth in the second start, I mean, eighth in the second start in a KBM truck would be pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, this certainly, I hope, leads to more things for him. And I had to get on a plane and fly out back to Mexico to run in the NASCAR Mexico race on Sunday. So,
yeah, what a weekend!
Yeah, so I hope this leads to more stuff. I think it will, whether or not what that is to be determined.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I know this was the second start of the year. I don't know what else he already has lined up. But I mean, for anyone to go out and finish second or finish eighth in their second start is pretty impressive. Just looking at the rest of the top 10, I already mentioned Hocevar, but I just can't. I feel like already easy to forget. His ankle is broken. His ankle is broken, and he's finished third. Dominated last week, and put the car on the pole at Sonoma. He has 4 top 4s in the last 9 races, which is much better than we'd ever seen from him before that. In addition to that, he easily could have had 2 more top 5s at Charlotte and Knoxville. Dominated Knoxville till his engine blew, led Charlotte up until the very end with a late caution. And if he hadn't over raced the car, even if Priest gets by him, he still finishes in the top 5. And I almost think you can even throw Sonoma in here. The fact that he was able to go out and put that car on the pole, because, yeah, he overdrove it in that last timing line, but he didn't need to. He was well clear of second place at that point, to where if he had ran that full race, I think he could have gotten the top 5 at Sonoma if he wasn't injured. So just been very impressed with him. This is much better than what we saw last year, which was a lot in our, when we would talk about it last year, he was like my poster guy for too many drivers in the Truck Series playoffs because he was in there, and I think he had 1 top 5 at the time.
That run at Darlington earlier in the year, and that was really it.
And like 2 top 10s or something like that. Like he was my guy for like, there's too many guys, and a lot of it just changes year to year. I would not necessarily argue this year that there are too many guys in. Like maybe there is, because maybe like you would like to see a battle at least, but I don't think that Crafton, if he winds up being the guy that gets in, shouldn't be in as much as I thought Harsuvar shouldn't have been in last year. But Ty Majeski finished 4th, obviously, caused the wreck that took out De Benedetto, Heim, and Finger. De Benedetto very upset after that accident.
Can't blame him.
I mean, you don't blame him at all. But he does have 6 top 5s in the last 9 races for Ty Majeski. So, been very solid. Guys, he's knocking on the door. Maybe he's out in the driveway calling, letting him know he's coming in. Because like I said, he hasn't really gone out and dominated a race yet. But he's getting there. And one note with Stuart Friesen, this is his first consecutive top 5s of the season, and first since Darlington Bristol last fall. Which last time he got consecutive top 5s, he actually finished 5th 3 times in a row. So maybe it's a good sign for him at Mid-Ohio. I don't know if he's ever finished top 500 before. I couldn't tell you.
Yeah, I couldn't either. I mean, they've never run Mid-Ohio. I mean,
certainly didn't finish 5th at Sonoma. I know that much.
Yeah.
Or top 5 at Sonoma. But any other guys that you want to shout out?
I mean, I already touched on Gutierrez. Jesse Little, solid top 20 finish. He's our fantasy guy. No surprise there at this point.
I do want to real quick, even though he didn't get a good finish. Like I felt even going into the race pretty confident in Jack Wood. Started great, good in practice, and then kind of just crashed himself. So
Yes. Yeah, not. We have those days. Like, if you go back and listen to all of my picks, at some point I'd probably block them out. But there's probably a handful of guys that I've said on the show so far where they're gonna have a good day and they're backwards in the fence before lap 30. So it happens, But he could have been
I do
good.
think there's
We'll
something
never know.
there at least. Like he's shown some speed. GMS though, I don't know what they need to do. They're not in a good spot. But I mean, other guys in like the top 15, another decent run for Dean Thompson, Chase Purdy, at least compared to where they normally run.
Mhm.
Colby Howard finished 16th, Chris Wright 17th. So not it's hard to say with all of them. Like is Satori worse than they were with Austin Hill? I mean, obviously, I think
Yes.
even Ankrum
Yeah.
is not as good as Austin Hill is. But is there maybe some equipment fall off too? I couldn't tell you. There's no way for us to really know. But I wouldn't be shocked if
Yeah.
there's a little bit, just because we have seen better than this. I feel like from Ankrum before.
Well, they've been a one truck team before, so going to two trucks.
That's true as well.
I mean, and you look at Ankrum, and he made the playoffs twice. 19, he won a race to make it, and 20, did he make it? Maybe he didn't make it in 20. You can't remember if there were 8 trucks then. But regardless, he still finished top 10 in points. He had 10 top 10s that year. So I mean, you've definitely seen a little bit of drop off. Doesn't have any top 5s. Has only led 4 laps. I think
did
them
make
going
it,
to
by
2
the way.
trucks. He did make it in 19.
He did make it in 19.
Right.
Or in 20. In 20.
Yeah, in 20.
He
Yeah.
did.
I couldn't remember if they had 10 trucks then yet. But I don't know. I think it's probably both. I think you took a downgrade in drivers. I think expanding the full 2 full-time teams, even though you have, I guess, extra money with sponsorship that Ankrum and Purdy brings in, I feel like maybe they might have stretched themselves a little thin. Because before that, you had a part-time Xfinity effort with Austin Hill. I feel like a part-time Xfinity effort where they were only running, I think they probably only ran less than 10 races a season at most. I think it was even less than that last year. So I kind of feel like maybe they just bit off a little more than they could chew. And the fact that you have a downgrade in drivers, it's not helping either.
I do think that Nice's other trucks, though, are actually ticking upwards.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't too long ago where the guys that weren't whatever that lead truck was, and those guys were running in the 20s, and they put 3 trucks in the top 17. So obviously, Hosevar's truck's still great. Whenever Chastain was getting in the truck, he was at least able to compete for wins and won a race. But even though the other 2 trucks definitely on the upswing, we might see even more competitive trucks in the series next year. They're not quite there, but they're getting into that like borderline, maybe they could throw themselves in the conversation early in the year type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, really, I think it's going to come down to what Carson Hocevar is doing. I think at this point, I'd expect him to be full-time in the trucks, but you never know. You never know. I mean, Zane Smith had a cup ride lined up, it sounded like last year before Ganassi sold, so who knows what goes on behind the scenes that we don't hear anything about. So it'll be interesting to see that.
Turning to the cut line in the Truck Series, Derek Kraus, he's now 29 points back. He finished 11th with 9 stage points, but lost 2 points to the cut line. But in reality, he should have gained 8 points on the cut line. He would, without that penalty, be sitting 19 back and might be, in my opinion, a favorite over Matt Crafton. But with 2 races left, 19 points, like it would be very, very close. Mid-Ohio, just because the road course kind of a wild card, don't really know what's going to happen. Just a lot more crazy things happen. Even Pocono, a little bit of one. But I would, with the momentum they've had, I'd probably, if you were gave me even odds, I'd probably take Kraus over Crafton. But 29 back, I know it's only 10 points, but when these guys are fighting for every point, it's a good bit of points. I mean, it's literally almost over a third of what he is currently out. So
I think, especially with a road course coming up for them, like I think you have to take advantage of the stage points in a race
if
like
the
that.
strategy presents itself and you can finish, top 2 or 3, because I don't think if you have a chance to finish in the top 5 in the race, I don't think it's worth it to shake it out on stage points and finish 5th in that stage. But if you're running in the top 5 and the 4 guys in front of you pit, you stay out. I think you take those 10 points,
I also
especially if you
feel
can
like
do it twice.
you have to watch what Crafton does too, because you can't put yourself in a hole where I think if you're Derek Kraus and you're like leading, and let's say Crafton's like 7th coming to the end of one of these stages, I feel like you have to stay out because you can't afford to pit and then Crafton and his crew go, now we're just going to take the stage points, and you have that happen twice, and then you can finish 5, 6, 7 spots in front of them and lose points still. So
I think it depends. If you're leading and feel like you can legitimately win the race, you maybe play to winning the race.
yeah, that's
Because
fair.
there's no guarantee you stay out because now you're back in the pack. There's no guarantee you don't get caught up in an accident, and now you won the stage, but you finished 30th in the race.
Mhm.
But I do agree, Crafton's definitely someone they need to keep an eye on. I mean, at Pocono too, you can pit
True.
and not lose a lap.
Yeah.
So that's these next 2 races will both have that option out there. So definitely pay attention to what Crafton is doing. And depending on the position you're in, I think depends on what you're doing. Obviously, if you have a really, really good Mid Ohio and then you effectively tied it up, then maybe you just do whatever Crafton does at Pocono, depending how close you are to him. But and I do think right now, unless something drastic happens, Derek Cross is the only guy that can point his way in.
I agree. I agree
I
with that
also
100%.
I also need to remember this. I want to make it a favorite, I think it's a favorite because the guys in the broadcast were adamant that no one was going to be able to point their way in. I don't know why you'd be adamant about that when you've actually looked at what's gone on in the last month, but they were very adamant that no one was going to point their way in. So
Yeah, crazy.
I think they'll be wrong, but I think Derek Kraft stands alone in that. Just with the days that the other guys had. Ankrum finished 7th, but with 0 stage points. Did gain 3 points to the cut line, but 50 back with 2 races. And now you're in a position where you need not just Matt Crafton to have issues, but probably Derek Kraft to have issues too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I don't think Ankrum can race his way in. He's only 21 back of Kraus, which is not insurmountable. But I mean, I think in order for him to catch Kraus probably has to have issues. Then you have to hope Crafton has issues. It's entirely possible, especially in the Truck Series. But I don't see it happening.
Yeah.
Matt DiBenedetto, Tanner Gray, no longer within a race. DiBenedetto lost 19 points and is now 62 back. Tanner Gray lost 20 points, is now 70 back. 100% they have to win the race. DiBenedetto was running in the top. I feel real bad for him. He was running in the top 10. He had gotten a couple stage points in stage 1, or maybe stage 2. I can't remember for sure, and was in a position to close that gap a little bit more. Certainly benefit from Derek Kraus's issues. I mean, if he just finishes 20 spots better than where he finished, which would have been 11th, which is worse than he ran. I mean, that puts him 32 back. He's right in that hunt with Derek Kraus. So I understand 100% why he was as upset as he was. Tanner Gray lost 20 points. He's now 70 back. What a slide it has been over the last 3-4 months for him. 3 months.
I got to give a shout out to Caden Rush on that one because he was all over that at the beginning of the year, and we were like, man, maybe Tanner Gray could be doing something here, and he's like, he was good at plate tracks at the beginning of the year, and that front loaded all of his points, and it definitely seems that way.
He finished good at Las Vegas as well.
Mm-hmm.
And he's had the speed to where if I don't know that he'd still be in, but he'd be right there if he could just finish where he ran. And he's maybe done that twice in the last 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's just been very, very bad for him. Crafton, first guy on the inside, is kind of the cut guy. 29 points up on the cut line. Finished 10th with no stage points, which is really why I definitely think Kraus would be a favorite without the penalty. Just the day he had, Kraus finished behind Crafton, still would have gained 8 points just because of the amount of stage points he got. But with that 10-point penalty, he's gonna have to definitely, like you said, take advantage of the stage points if the option is there, and just do everything he can to close that gap even more. And I think it's going to be really close come Pocono.
Yeah.
Grand Infigure, 39 up, finished 32nd with 1 stage point. Also caught up in that accident with the Benedetto and Heim. Lost 19 points to cut line. I feel pretty safe for him unless someone wins. If someone wins and now he's racing Crafton, I still think Enfinger's the favorite there, but it doesn't take much then for, the same thing that just happened and suddenly he's out.
Right.
So certainly close to cut line for him. Was sitting 58 points up, almost a race up on the cut line, and just now he's in a position where one more slip up and they might be on the outside.
Well, I will say, despite the truck playoff picture, looking like it's beginning to take some real shape here, the Xfinity series, that almost looks like it's done. We'll get to that here in a few, but let's talk about the race from Saturday first. Another Junior Motorsports beatdown. This time, Justin Allgaier led 134 of the 188 laps. Pretty much untouchable, won by about 4.5 seconds over Trevor Bayne, who did back up what we were saying. Very good on these concrete tracks. Pretty good at Nashville when he doesn't have issues. Another strong run from him again today. But I mean, Junior Motorsports, like, what can you say about them right now? We touched on it before. This is like F1 level dominance from this team. And you just load them up, and if it's a non-restrictor plate track and not a road course, I feel like it's almost a lock for them to win right now.
Well, they've now won 12 straight oval stage wins, 6 straight races in which they have won both stages. I will say this was among the weaker that they looked as an organization, although I think the finishing positions are a bit deceptive. Even with Josh Berry screaming that he had a crazy loose car, he was still running, I think, 8th when he spun. And I think they broke something when he spun. I'm not sure because they never were in the picture again after that.
Yeah, I know Priest did make a little bit of contact with them. It was
might
soft
have been
contact.
might have been just enough to break
Yeah.
something because I think the highest I saw them running after that was 18th.
Mm-hmm.
And it was later in the race, but not so late that it would have prevented them from being able to make a charge back up. I don't know if they lost a lap. I'm not sure. At some point, I know they did. They finished, I think, 3 laps down. I'm not sure exactly what happened. And then Noah Gregson also was running in the top, 8 or so most of the day. Was one of several cars where just they didn't work out for them. Out pretty late or I guess it wasn't pretty late. There was 70 to go, but it was right on the edge of the pit window. Everyone that pit wound up being able to make it, but there were 8 or so cars that stayed out, and none of them were able to make it. It included all 3 Colin cars, Noah Gregson, I believe Brandon Jones. There were probably a couple other ones in there. I'm not
Was in
remembering
there as well. Yeah.
Who was?
I think AJ was in one of those ones.
Well, as I said, all three Colin cars.
Oh, I missed that. All right.
So ultimately, cost them all a finish of better than they would have been running. Noah Gregson did manage to run up, finish 13th, first car 1 lap down. But still a good day for Jerem. I mean, and a great day for Justin Allgaier. Sheldon Creed, though, caught up in another accident that, while he was certainly a key part of this, was not his fault.
What a fortune.
Jeb Burton got in a bit too hot, got in 4 wide, and luckily, I guess, for the cars involved in this 4 wide, the other 2 cars at least, unlike Ty Majeski, who was on the bottom, Jeb Burton was the 3rd car, only took out Sheldon Creed. And I didn't get a good look of it, but Joe Graff Jr. came in there pretty late and just kind of finished both of their days if they weren't already done. So
he's 100 points behind Ryan.
Playoff
spot now.
Yeah, we'll look at that, but it's rough. The only reason I won't put a fork in them is we do have Atlanta, we do have Daytona. But
Yeah, I
other
mean,
than that, I agree.
how it's going for him, it's just like I don't even
I just would not be shocked if RCR does a full make Sheldon Creed win one of these races move.
listen.
I
Well,
mean, listen,
they can't. They can't because you have Landon Castle and Daniel Hemrick. They're one problem away from being behind Ryan Sieg in points. They're not going to try to help Sheldon Creed win that race. It's just not going to happen.
no, Colleague won't, but RCR can enter more cars too.
I don't think they're
At
going to
least
enter
one
more
more.
cars. I mean, you have the 48. I guess 3. I don't know if that's going to be enough.
I mean, you could enter, put Austin in a car.
I just don't see them doing that. We haven't seen a team enter extra plate cars since I think KHI entered like a
That's
5th car for Tony at that
that's
Daytona
fair.
race.
I do think RCR is real strong. They've been real strong at the plate tracks. Unfortunately, they haven't been very strong at very many other places. But Sheldon Creed he's 100% done for pointing his way in. I just don't see a world where it's possible. And I think if he does, he would have won a race anyway. So
It's over for Sheldon Creed. And this year, I mean, we were talking last week. It's like, are you worried about the future of his career? And like, it is bad enough where like it has to be on the radar. But like today, not
I
really
think
anything
he
he can do.
probably he's got enough talent, and like I said, unlike Brett Moffitt, as far as I know, hasn't really burned bridges. That I'm sure he could land a truck ride. But for someone that a couple years ago, or even a year ago, still had pegged as like a potential Cup talent, he's looking far from that right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if he looks just in over his head. I think maybe he's just got some really really bad luck. Maybe
He
he's
has a lot of
cursed.
bad luck. But I think that's the thing, though, right? If he was running top 5 consistently and then was having that bad luck, I would be like, well, maybe this won't end his career. Like, it's in a bad spot, but he's still running good. He's not running bad, but I mean, he's running top 7 on a good day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's part of the issue is that not only is he finishing bad, but he's not running good enough to really justify being like, yeah, just keep him in the car if this is what's going to happen.
I mean, I think honestly too, you could probably say the same thing about Jeb Burton. We were 15 races in the year, no top 10s. Hasn't led a lap. I know he's racing for Al Motorsports, but you've seen a lot more out of Alfredo Moffitt.
So
yeah,
but I mean, Jeb Burton's better than Noah Gragson, according to Jeb Burton. So one interesting thing, and I'm sure this has happened before. A lot of penalties today. Lots of guys have penalties. All 3 calling cars got speeding penalties at the end of I think stage 1.
Yep.
And that's what I don't remember seeing that before. I don't know if they all just. I imagine there had to have been something wrong with how they calculated pit road speed if all 3 of them sped. But pretty
To see
interesting.
all 3. Yeah, no, that's still very, very bizarre.
Sheldon Creed also got speeding in that stage as well. There was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 speeding penalties today. Also, Josh Williams got a penalty for disobeying a NASCAR request. I don't know what that means necessarily. Didn't get parked, just got tail end. So, but looking at some of the finishers, you already mentioned Trevor Bayne, but I also want to state he got a penalty at the end of actually at the last pit stop that they made. He got a speeding penalty. Or no, sorry, an equipment interference penalty. Had to go to the tail end of the field and still drove up to finish second with no cautions. So could he have done? Actually, no. I think there was 1 caution. Could he have done something if there was a late race? It was weird. Like he would pull a couple tenths, and then Allgaier would pull a couple tenths, and he'd pull a couple tenths. But he raced through all that traffic. I don't know where he was on the last restart because there was one shortly after that first or that last or caution was 70 to go. But very good run and probably had the second best car today. Now that he's made a ton of races in this time span, but this is his best Xfinity finish since Chicagoland in 2014. So I hope this does lead to more starts. He's been awfully impressive in his 5 starts this year. 3 top 4s, a 9th, and Atlanta he finished 28th, but it's Atlanta, so just been very, very impressive.
Very
Riley,
unfortunate. We just call Atlanta now.
yeah, I don't disagree. Riley Hurts, I think best race of his career, and the stats back it up. It was the best driver rating he's had in an Xfinity race in his career. I think it was 118 point something. Finished third. He's now tied last year's top 5 mark, which is the third highest of his career, and they're not even halfway through the season yet. They're only a couple races short of halfway, but they're not even halfway through the season yet, and he's already eclipsed last year's top 5 mark, and just was a bounce back race for him. He had a couple rough weeks, where I guess not rough weeks. It was like a month because of the time off, but bounced back, finished third. Didn't lead any laps. Still only led 1 lap this year, but he's that guy that if stuff goes wrong for the leaders, he might be the guy that capitalizes on it. We've certainly seen that happen in the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, I mean, good run for Herbst. I had him as my value pick for the races or the Xfinity race this week. So yeah, I felt pretty solid, and when I saw that he got the pole, I was like, man, he's got a chance. Didn't pan out that way, but I don't really think you could be upset when you get beat by a junior motorsports car, and even Trevor Bayne. It's funny to say he's a veteran because he's been in and out of the sport the last couple of years, and he is only like what, 31,
what like
32?
time off can do, because it's not like when Trevor Bayne left, everyone was like, man, I hope Trevor Bayne gets another shot. But now, like,
he's kind of put himself in that like Ryan Preece category where it's like, I hope he finds something.
He definitely. I mean, to be fair though, with Trevor Bayne, we kind of said that a couple years ago when he came back in the COVID season to run a few truck races for Nice. He was supposed to run some last year, but that didn't end up happening. Ty Gibbs finished 4th, just his 3rd top 5 since Richmond. But I do want to say he did show some maturity post race, a lot more than we've seen from Ty Gibbs the entire time before this combined. Probably, has had some talking tos by Grandpa, but could have easily come out and been mad at Sam Mayer, even if he wasn't like raging or throwing a fit like he was before, but been mad at it. But just said what it was. It was a racing deal. Honestly, affected, and I think it's probably made it easier for him. Affected Sam more than it affected Ty with the damage to Sam's car afterwards. But
wish Sam never hit him, because he would have probably spun out and maybe even backed it in the fence. He got bailed out there.
That is true. Like
when the announcers are saying, "Man, that was the save of the year," it's like, no, not really. Another car hit him and straightened it back out.
They also did say that he was safe because Sam Mayer hit him. It wasn't like they just talked about how good, how good Sam Mayer or Ty Gibbs is.
Not a save in my book. That's all.
More importantly for Ty Gibbs, though, now still 25 back from AJ Allmendinger. And that points battle is tightening up, as I said it would. We do go to a road course next week. And I'm sure they go to another one. Go to at least 2 more, I think, before the playoffs.
Watkins Glen,
and Indy Road Course. So some more chance for AJ to get some more points, but Ty Gibbs 25 back. Justin Allgaier only 32 back. Noah Gragson 42 back, and Josh Berry more, but 75 back. If he has a couple good races, he'll put himself in that contention too. So for all 4, by the way, JRM cars in the top 6, with Sam Mayer being 135. Although right now they are 2nd or 3rd through 4th, so I'm sure they'd like to at least take those top 2 spots, which I certainly think Justin Allgaier and Noah Gragson can.
I think any of them really could, but like they keep having problems. Ty Gibbs too. My gut tells me AJ Allmendinger is still going to win the regular season championship when you just factor in the road courses and that he seems to just make less mistakes than the other guys behind him.
If I get the field, give me the field, 100%. If you made me pick a specific driver, I might still stick with AJ. But if I have AJ versus the field, I will take a field every time.
Mhm.
Just because, and they led a good amount of laps today. This was and this is what makes their strategy such a shame. One of their better races in terms of overall speed. Spent a lot of time in the top 5, and then that strategy cost them probably about 10 points or so. I don't know exactly where he ended up finishing, 16th. So it's about 10 to 12 points depending on where he would have been running if they had just stuck on the same strategy as everybody else.
Right.
Honestly, I don't understand why AJ and they were even close enough to the front that they should have at least come down pit road just for gas. We saw a couple guys do that, and then obviously they weren't able to stay at the front. But these guys would have restarted near the front anyway, probably in or around the lead. So it was I would have at least come in for gas there if I was a car in the front instead of staying out. Just at least then you put yourself in a position where if it goes green, should be able to hang on for a top 10. But
Mhm.
Sam Mayer finished 5th, another 5th. All his top 5s have been 3rds or 5th still, but he did have a broken AC for basically the entire race, and had a speeding penalty at the end of stage 2, and had that contact with Ty Gibbs. Despite all that, still rebounded to finish 5th. So very good. This was one of his more, with all that considered, maybe actually his most impressive race of his short career so far. Outside the top 5, there are a lot of, especially because of the strategy, I think a lot of guys in the top 10 that we don't see there a lot. Now, we do see Ryan Preece there a lot, but just, I got to keep talking about it until he gets announced into something because he deserves it. Second top 10 of the season, and was probably a lap away from getting past Sam Mayer. I thought he was going to get past him because he was there and had more speed, but just couldn't quite do it. Jeffrey Earnhardt ran pretty solid all day, even spun a little over, I think, midway through the race, and finished 7th, though, just his 5th career
That was
top
a
10.
really good run for him
It
in that
was,
car.
and
Yeah.
it was the kind of thing we wanted to see in that car. Because even I think he would have finished probably like 12th without some of the strategy calls from other guys. But it was still the best run he's had in this car, and he's had a couple starts in it. So the kind of run that could maybe lead to more rides around this, maybe a little bit worse, but still better than what he's used to running.
Mhm.
Ryan Sieg finished 8th. Ran, in his usual, like 8th to 15th most of the day, but played the right end of the strategy. I do think he was actually closer on fuel than the other guys. He also stayed out, but he had pit in the stage before that and had, I think if they had 2 more laps, he would have run out of gas. Like, it was very close. He gave up like 8 seconds in those last 2 laps just saving gas. But finished 8th, stopped the recent slide that he had before that to now set his 3rd highest top 10 mark of his career, just a little under halfway through the season. And with the troubles from other guys, I think is in a very, very solid spot. Obviously, if someone wins, he's suddenly out, but very solid if they don't. And then some guys that we talked about in terms of our value picks. Brett Moffitt, one of the guys I had is the value pick on the fantasy team, finished 10th. Just his second top 10 this year at a regular oval. Also has a top 10 at, I think, Talladega. Finished top 10 in Austin. But then the other top 10 at regular oval was Las Vegas. So solid day. Parker Retzloff, man. Finished 12th. He should also, another one of those guys that, and there are a lot of guys that wind up fitting this. They don't have funding, so they don't get it. But certainly another guy that deserves more rides in whatever equipment there is. Ran, top around 15th all day, but just kept the car clean. Certainly is running better than, and I don't know, maybe that car is just, I don't know that it's out there just to make money because I feel like they'd start and park it, but certainly runs better than Kyle Sieg does.
Yeah.
And better than most of the other guys who get into that car. And Stephen Parsons finished 14th, and it should have been a double top 15 for Alpha Prime. Ryan Ellis had a flat tire with like 3 laps to go. Had to pit, and that dropped him outside the top 20. But very solid race for both of them. I certainly hope, obviously this is funding dependent, I hope whoever's in these cars next year is at least their talent level or better and is in the car full time. Because I think they could become better, honestly, better than our motorsports.
I know the rumor, at least, a month or so ago, that I was hearing that they really want Raja in that car
Yeah,
full time.
I know.
If I'm Raja, I don't know if I take it. I almost feel like the Spire truck might be better.
If the Spire truck is on the table, I take the Spire truck.
Mm-hmm.
I take the Spire truck 100%, just because I also think it is right now. Obviously, this could change with some changes in who's in what ride. Right now, if you made me choose if I want to fight to get into the playoffs in the Truck Series or the Xfinity Series, especially with those rides, give me the Truck Series in the Spire truck every day of the week.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't disagree. Obviously, if that option is there, we don't know for. I haven't heard any rumors in that other than people saying, "Oh, this would be a good fit." I have heard the ones though about him potentially being in this car next year, and I mean, it's entirely possible. Also, he's full time in this car and runs part time in the Spire truck. Who knows? But
yeah,
they should definitely get some full time guys in here because that almost always is going to help your program. Obviously, funding dependent, but I've been very impressed with the runs that Stephen Parsons and else have had.
Yeah,
my fantasy team
Parsons too, because I don't know, he didn't really strike me as somebody who I felt like could really do anything to move up, and now that he's been in this car for a couple races, it's a little intriguing. Makes you go, maybe something's there. Let's see what the kid can do. So
I fully agree. My fantasy team, even though I had Josh Berry who got me negative points, and Ryan Ellis who lost, over 10 points, with the position and the points in terms of spots, I don't know, 15, 20 points in the last couple laps. I still, with the team I made for our preview podcast, still cashed in the DraftKings tournament. One, that's just how good Justin Allgaier was.
Yeah.
But two of the other guys, Brett Moffitt, Parker Retzlaff, I had who the last guy was off the top of my head. Oh, it was Josh Berry. He was the one that cost me points. Then I had Moffitt, Retzlaff, and Ellis. Just a solid day. I definitely think after these two races, stand by my Dover is the closest similar to this one, even though it doesn't. It would never work on an asphalt track because banking matters that much. Because concrete drives so different.
It does.
That you really can't take one of the obvious, like whenever people talk about concrete tracks, they also like to throw Martinsville in there. That one doesn't matter. It's just the terms. It means nothing. Mm-hmm. But this same list of guys when we go to Bristol might the guys that run both good at both Dover and Nashville. Maybe the guys you look there, but. Anyone else that you want to talk about?
No, I mean, I think we mentioned Stephen Parsons. You already got on, Retzlaff and Ryan Ellis. Don't really see anybody here. I guess shout out to Dylan Bassett and his team for actually making a race. They've had a really rough year so far, and really, desperately needed to do something there to get in, and they did that. So.
And I will say, they didn't get good finishes, but in practice, at least, both J.J. Yaley and Kyle Weatherman showed some speed. I don't know.
In practice, so I don't know what was going on there.
I don't know. I mean, J.J. Yaley spent a good portion of the practice in the top 5, I think.
Weatherman was up there for a little, too. It was crazy.
So first of all, maybe we already kind of thought this since in his first ride or not his first ride, but in one of his rides with the Jesse Uchi car, he took it to a 12th place at Darlington, 16th place at Martinsville. Now had a power steering issue and a crash in the last two races in that car. But I don't know what happened to J.J. Yaley. I don't even know if he started because I missed the very beginning of the race. But he, I know, was in the garage. Eventually came back 30 laps down and just didn't get. Obviously, once you're 30 laps down, it kind of ends your day. But I mean, hey, it was unfortunate for Sheldon Creed. He didn't crash late enough. He still lost 1 point to J.J. Yaley there. But just some other guys that have shown some speed there. I mean, JJ Ely coming off of one of the best runs of, honestly, of his career.
That's fair.
It's crazy because if he was announced as full time in like an Alpha Prime car, the internet would lose their mind in being so happy for him.
Oh yeah, 100%.
When 14, 15 years ago, they hated the guy. Maybe hated a little strong, but they were like, he has no business being in anything. And it's just what time will do. Sometimes you pay your dues, and it really does affect how the general population feels about you. I missed it, but one area we haven't mentioned. What happened with Tyler Reddick?
I missed that as well.
I didn't see anything. He only spent 13% of the laps in the top 15. He finished 21st, so it's not like he like crashed and was out of the race. But I didn't hear anything, I know.
I know
pretty sure
they
he
went
was
to the
on
back because they had an engine change, but I don't know what happened to him throughout the race.
I don't know if they just
never noticed him.
Yeah, he was just gone. Looking at the cut line, not much to look at already, but Ryan Sieg now has a 69-point lead on the cut line. Just running through the guys that are the first guys out, not that it matters much. Alfredo, 69 back, and just very impressed with his season. Benefited early on, especially from just being a little bit luckier than Moffitt and Jeb Burton had. I think you can't even argue at this point. Alfredo has ran better than Jeb Burton. Period.
100%. Jeb doesn't even have a top 10. I don't know why anybody would say that Jeb's run better to begin with.
Well, because in the beginning of the season, there was a lot of arguments, like a month and a half in, that Alfredo was only there just because he had kept the car clean, which one is a good trait you want to have in your driver. So that's one thing. But two, I mean, at this point, it's just not true. They've all had plenty of opportunity to catch him, and Moffitt's close, and I think Moffitt will probably get past him, but he's definitely ran better than Jeb Burton. But Alfredo 69 back, Moffitt 72 back, Brandon Brown 74 back, turning his season around a little bit. Still, obviously not what he expected, but Jeb Burton 93 back, and Sheldon Creed 100-point back. Good news for Sheldon Creed, this might be the basement.
I don't know.
In terms of not in terms of points back, but in terms of positions, this might be the basement. He obviously crashes, could easily lose more points, but the next guy after Sheldon Creed is Myatt Snyder, who is 31 points back. And I think he'll stay ahead of Myatt Snyder.
Yeah, hey, I don't know, man. We got road courses. What if it rains? What if something happens? What if Creed wrecks there? Myatt Snyder did do pretty good at Portland, so.
I mean, Creed did better. He just then also wrecked. So
yeah, well, we can pencil him in.
In terms of guys that would be within 60, just because there's nothing else to look at. But in case someone else won, I don't have the exact point totals because it doesn't matter that much right now. But Herbst, Hemrick, and Castle are all still within 60 points of Sieg. So if Sieg were to become the first guy out, at least then there's a little bit of a race. I don't hope it happens. I think Ryan Sieg deserves to be in the playoffs, honestly, based on the way he's ran, especially compared to the way the guys behind him this year. And there is, still like 10, 12 races. They have, they have 7. They have a 33 race season, right?
Yep, 33.
There's 11 races left for them. So I mean, with 2 plate tracks, crazier things have happened. But I mean, I'm pretty confident in the point lead itself as being safe. Obviously, they can't go out and repeat the last 2 weeks over and over again because then it'll disappear. But if he just does what he's been doing, even if Creed gets hot, he's more likely to win a race than a race with a 100-point deficit. Mm-hmm. Especially because hot for that team is literally running top 5. I
think hot for that team might just be finishing.
At this point, it might be finishing. It might be finishing. I feel bad for him. There's honestly not very often where I genuinely feel bad for a driver, but just so few of these incidents have been his fault. Since Austin, since Coda, where he was 11th in points, had finished in the top 10 in 4 of the first 6 races. He has 2 top 10s. They are only 8th. So that's problem 1. And not only are they only 2, they're only 8th. But his other 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 finishes are all 22nd or worse. And has slid from 11th in points to 17th.
Yeah.
So it's just
Rough.
been bad.
It's
I
been
will
bad.
say, for at least the Truck and the Xfinity race, for our overall predictions, they were probably among the best they've been. In the Truck Series, you obviously had Priest, who I said was also probably my favorite, but I did pick Zane Smith. They finished 1-2. Derek Kraus ran pretty strong. He was your value pick. And I had Carson over from the bars. My value pick to finish 3rd. And I just think with the way he's run, if he is 1,500 plus, maybe not at Mid Ohio, although he did do pretty good at Sonoma, so we'll see. But at 1,500 plus, I think Hocevar is a bet almost every week.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
He is going to win. And if he continues to be 1,500 plus, only has to win 1 out of the next 15 races, which 1, they don't even have that many left in their season. But 2, I would take those odds that he wins the race there. Unfortunately for you, your head-to-head that week, or for the truck race, you picked Chandler Smith over Ben Rhodes. Did not work out. I don't remember if anything happened to Chandler Smith or not.
I know he had some issues. I know he spun out in one of those late wrecks. Ben Rhodes basically hip checked him trying to avoid it, but he had issues. I think he had a pit penalty. That's what it was. They left the wedge wrench, I think, in the back of the truck, so they got dinged for removing equipment from the pit box. That put him in the back of the pack, and just didn't have enough laps left to go up through there and make that up.
And then I had Zane Smith over John Hunter. That one obviously worked out. But honestly, I'm very impressed. I'm very happy with how the Xfinity race turned out. I was right, and I had Allgaier to win. But I had Allgaier. He finished 1st. You had Mayer. He finished 5th. Excuse me. I had Priest as my value pick. He finished 6th. You had Herbst as your value pick. He finished 3rd.
Yeah, we were on it.
So very good. Both of our head-to-heads worked out. I had Allgaier over Gregson. You had Trevor Bayne over Tyler Reddick. So good so far.
I know. That was good. Just very happy I at least got to secure the bag on Friday night. So that was good. I'm tired. I don't know how many times, whether it be in the fantasy or in the race, I'm sitting there and something's going to happen. It does. It almost happened in the damn truck race. It almost did. I still don't know what exactly happened because Fox was too busy showing me replays, but Priest was able to hang on. So that was good at least. So unfortunately for this second, Marky had to step aside. So we're going to the bullpen and we're bringing in one of our good buddies, John Finley, here with us, or as we like to call him, Mocha. Mocha, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Brandon. I'm doing great.
That's great. Short notice. I know Marky had some stuff they had to take care of, so he can't be here for this segment. But, pretty simple. Just talking about the Cup race and what we saw. Another pretty solid race at the Nashville Super Speedway. A lot of stuff going on. A lot to unpack. Race started out a little later in the day, and that I know a lot of people were a little bit upset about because it did allow the weather to come into play. First stage, while we did have to sit through some lightning strikes, it was pretty much a Toyota-dominated show with Martin Truex Jr. and Denny Hamlin really battling it out for the race lead. Truex coming home with the Stage 1 win. Stage 2, that's when we had the really big delay. A couple lightning strikes, a big rainstorm, and that pushed the race late into the night. Truex came home with Stage 2 as well, and it looked like it was going to be one of the 3 top Gibbs cars between Truex, Hamlin, and Busch. Then, out of nowhere, about 100 laps to go, Chase Elliott makes a pretty good pit call. They come in, they take some tires on a restart with about 90 laps to go. Goes from 14th to 6th on the first lap on that restart, and it gives them a bit of a tire advantage that whole run. He runs down the Toyotas, passing Kyle Busch for the lead. green flag pit stop somewhat cycle through Chase and Kyle after a late yellow for a Chris Buescher loose wheel. You've seen too many of those this year. They line up on the front row, and Chase got the best of Kyle on the restart. And while he did have to hold a couple other guys off on the last restart of the race with about 4 laps to go, and that was probably a big talking point, too, with how that ended. Chase Elliott, second win of the year. I know Marky's very happy. He did pick him to win the race. I'm sure he wishes he could be here to brag about it. But fortunately, he's not. But, just some takeaways from that. What did you think of the whole race and the finish and everything that went down there at the end?
Yeah, overall, I actually enjoyed the race. Aside from the rain delay in the middle, I thought we had some good racing. I was really impressed by Joe Gibbs Racing. They were up front the first 2 stages, basically the entire time. They had the top 3 spots. That was kind of interesting to see. We haven't really seen that, I feel like, all year. But, of course, it didn't shake out too well for them at the end. But, it'll be interesting to keep an eye on them for the rest of the, or at least for next week.
Yeah, I know. I think you bring up a good point because they were awful at Sonoma, and we are going to a road course next week at Road America. So that is definitely something to take a look at. Really, all the manufacturers except Chevy, so Ford and Toyota, they've been really hot and cold. You've seen Joe Gibbs Racing kind of show up for some races, but nothing like this. I remember Las Vegas towards the end of that race. That was the first time they really started putting something together. I know you were there, unfortunately. There was a late yellow, and your buddy Alex Bowman won.
Yeah, I was there, and it was interesting. It's kind of ironic that Hendrick Carr edges them out for the win at the end there as well.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if they could build off that performance. I know they're probably really upset that they didn't win, but just going through the lap counters, Toyotas in general, when you throw in the 2311 cars, because Kurt Busch did also lead a couple laps, it looks like they led all but 5, maybe 6 laps. Chase Elliott led 42. He had a real fast car, but didn't get up there till the end. Outside of that, Ryan Blaney led 1. That was on a restart where he's racing side by side with Truex. And Joey Logano decided to take 2 tires there after one of the early stages, and that gave him some laps under caution, but he was not able to hold the lead. So very dominating day by Toyota. Just missed out on that statement victory with Chase Elliott able to come through there in the clutch. Now, I know we were talking about this when we were just going through the race, too. On that last restart, you have a couple guys that are older tires. Cole Custer and Brad Keselowski get into it. They both slammed the wall. I think everybody thought that should have been a yellow flag. This is something that NASCAR's really struggled with in terms of consistency. They kind of made a statement, it sounded like, just going through social media. Bob Hawkers, did talk about it where, NASCAR's in a box, and they say, well, we threw the yellow at the end of the All-Star race, and that was the wrong decision. We thought we'd let him race. But I think what you saw at the end of the race on Sunday night, that was one that should have warranted a yellow, given how hard the drivers got into the wall and the fact Brad Keselowski's limping around. He could have easily been hit, if somebody gets knocked down there where he was. So just real questionable decision.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think the no caution was a little bit lousy by NASCAR. Kind of seems to take the easy way out and just let it go to get the race over with. But I definitely think they should have thrown the caution there. If they want to be so concerned about driver safety, I think that's something that raises some eyebrows.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I get the argument when they bring up the All-Star race, but different wrecks. In the All-Star race, I think it was Stenhouse. He maybe touched the wall, and Ryan Blaney's like 10 feet from the checkered flag. Obviously, in a normal race, the race would have already been over at that point, but because of the rules, that really threw everyone for a loop. But you've already seen it on social media. You already hear people talking about it's like, would it have been different if somebody else was leading? Chase Elliott is the most popular driver. Really unfortunate that that's really the talking point. I don't think it would have mattered. And Chase had a really good restart there. Wasn't really anybody near them, I think, close enough that had fresh tires from that yellow before. So I think you drag it out a couple more laps and Chase probably ends up in victory lane. But I understand the frustration with a lot of people. Kurt Busch, really, he wasn't frustrated with no yellow. He's just frustrated with himself. He wishes he got a better restart there and was able to challenge Chase. But I think by the end of the race, Chase just had the best car. not shocking that he's able to get away on that last restart and pick up his second win of the year. Other people just bring up, I know Ryan Blaney, he had a spin earlier in the race, used the strategy there at the end, came home in third. Austin Cindric's had an up and down year since the Daytona 500. Ended up coming home seventh, so solid top 10 for him. Kevin Harvick right now in that playoff hunt, trying to get that last playoff spot on points currently, really needed a good day. Looked like he might have had top 5 speed through parts of the day, but in the end, with all the yellows that came out at the end, they made the wrong call there and ended up coming home 10th. Bubba Wallace, wild day for him. Have you seen a pit crew worse than that 23 for like a major team?
I don't believe I have.
No, it's been out of control. I was reading up on some stuff. I think they've had couldn't get the exact count, but somewhere between 7 to 9 loose wheels this year. And I know we've seen a lot of those from other teams as well. It's pretty crazy. They've only had one fall off given that just large number, but that was a rough day for Bubba. I think he had top 5 speed. Definitely had top 10 speed, and he probably could have made some noise there if his pit crew didn't keep putting him behind the 8 ball. And then when they finally get back up and running well, he's on pit road when Chris Buescher has his wheel fall off, and that trapped him a lap down again. He had to take the wave around, and he's lucky to get out of there with a 12th. Really unfortunate. I know he was on the radio. He wasn't happy. I can't blame him. Like, after a certain amount of times of this happening, you're just going to get frustrated, and you could really sense it with him during the race. So at least they were able to make something good come out of it, but still not the day that Bubba probably wanted, especially with the speed he showed. Michael McDowell, 13th place finish for him. Pretty much same situation as Kevin Harvick. Looked like he was going to have, possibly 7th or 8th place finish when that yellow for Josh Bilicki came out with about 9 laps to go. Took away a top 10, but they are showing a lot of really good speed, so nice to see that out of the 34 car. Tyler Reddick, he got caught up in an incident with Bubba Wallace when they were leaving the pits. When Bubba had his loose wheel earlier in the race, he ran into the back of him. Wasn't really running too good before that, but that really didn't do him any favors. Somebody, that needs to get some points together if he's not going to win a race. And we know Reddick had the speed earlier in the year, but just not showing it right now. Rough day for him. Eric Almirola finished 1 spot ahead of him in 17th. Along the same lines, if we didn't have so many different winners right now, he'd probably be in decent contention for a playoff spot, but he finds himself behind the cut line, and we'll take a look at that in about a minute. But all in all, I think a lot of the guys that needed good runs today, most of them showed speed. Not really many of them were able to capitalize on it. Anybody that you were looking at, through the race, maybe surprised you or any thoughts about?
I'm going to go to number 13, or 13th place, I should say. Michael McDowell really impressed me the whole race. Both first 2 stages, I believe he had a top 10 in both. So, he was just solid all day. Top 10 car for sure. It's kind of unfortunate he, lost the top 10 at the end there, but I'll be interested to see if he, brings the heat again to another 1.5 miles or something close to it.
Yeah, Nashville, a little unique in terms of the size, the 1.3, but it's really hard to just classify it. It really is. I'd say, given the concrete surface, it's easy to say Dover. I've seen some people throw out there, it runs more like maybe not what Las Vegas is now, but what it used to be before they put the banking on there. So it's a unique track, but you've seen a lot of speed out of McDowell recently, and it'll be interesting to see if he could keep that going in the future. I know 2 guys at the bottom of the list here, just to talk about too, before we take a look at the points. Alex Bowman and William Byron. Awful day for both of them. Byron had an issue. We don't know what exactly happened. He looks like he had a parts failure. We don't know if it was going before, because during one of the lightning strikes, they were interviewing him. He said something was wrong with the car. He made slight contact with Chase Elliott, and immediately after that, if I can't tell you if that little contact is what did it for Byron, or if it was going to break anyways going off in the turn. He was able to get it woed up, so he didn't end up totaling the car. They ended up bringing it into the pits, back into the garage, and fixing what was wrong with it, but he came home 35th. Alex Bowman, after some issues on pit road, got punted by Corey LaJoy, and his day was cut short after only 49 laps. Bowman's one of those guys right now. He's real lucky he has that win. If he didn't, he's only looks like 9 points in front of Kevin Harvick, which would be for that last playoff spot on points. Bowman, like I said, locked in, but that's a team right now. You're still racing for, points inside the top 10 that you would get awarded, like those playoff points at the end of the regular season. Obviously, you still want to go out there, win stages, win races, but they really got to pick it up because him and Byron right now, they just seem to be going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, Byron really had a hot start to the season, and it really just hasn't been there the last few weeks, it seems. I don't really know what changed, but I really would love to see him get it back together and get back to the front.
Really kind of feel like what changed is that Joey Logano punted him away out of the way at Darlington.
That really was the turning point. It seems a little after that. I don't think we've really seen much of William Byron.
It really has been, because you look at after he won Martinsville, Bristol Dirt, he finished 18th, but that's Bristol Dirt. And then he finished 15th at Talladega. Again, Talladega, that's Talladega. Dover, that wasn't good. 22nd place finish, but he followed that up with a good run at Darlington until Joey did get into him, which put him in the wall. Car obviously damaged there, ends up finishing 13th. Since then, 16th at Kansas. While he did show speed, they had problems there. Did not get the result he probably deserved, but then, 32nd at Charlotte, 19th at Gateway, 9th at Sonoma, and then a 35th here today. It's been a rough, month and a half, 2 months for that team, and the 2 wins are going to help him. I think he's actually tied right now in terms of playoff points in the whole series when you're not factoring in the ones that would be awarded for where they finish in the points at the end of the regular season. So he has something in the bank, but with how everything's really shaping up, you're probably going to need more to get a nice cushion through that first round. He's going to really have to work for it in that first round of the playoffs if they don't do something to turn it around here really quick. So that's going to bring us right now to the points. Kevin Harvick right now holding down that last spot. He has a 9-point lead, it looks like, over Eric Almirola right now. So it's pretty tight. They flip-flopped. I don't know about you, but I'm beginning to feel like maybe Kevin Harvick's showing enough speed where if we don't get a winner behind him, that he might be able to hold on to that last playoff spot.
Yeah, I believe he'll do it.
Yeah, it's pretty confident in old Harv.
Yeah, I'm confident in the old closer.
I like it. I like that. That's a throwback right there. We haven't seen Harvick really close anything out, unfortunately, lately. But they had a pretty strong run going where he showed borderline top 5 speed for parts of this race. Probably the best I've seen the 4-car look in a while. I know we had a good run at Sonoma, but road courses in NASCAR, there's more on the schedule now. It's not what you want to be great at, I guess you could say, with all the ovals on there. So for him to have a solid run on Sunday, even if it didn't end probably where it should have, definitely some, promising signs. He's got to keep it up in case somebody wins. And I'm sure Mark will have more to say about that when he gets back later on in the week. But, some of these guys that are further back, I know we want to pencil them in for wins, and I think we all think that they might be able to, get to possibly 16 winners still. Right now, Truex showed really good speed. I expect Christopher Bell, with the speed he's shown, to potentially win a race. And Ryan Blaney, he did win the All-Star race. He did finish third tonight. The Fords have been a little hot and cold, so we'll see. But it's one of those deals where, those 3 guys are the ones I expect to win. I'm beginning to lose faith in some of these people further back. Eric Almirola, I think people have New Hampshire penciled in for him as a potential shot for him to get a win, given how he ran there last year, winning that race. But kind of feel like, Austin Dillon and Tyler Reddick, they're not where they were earlier in the year. I'm beginning to lose hope that, one of them are going to be able to win. And if Reddick continues to have the bad luck, and, this past race, he didn't even show the speed that we're accustomed to him having this year, it's going to be really hard to make up that points gap. He's over 50 behind Kevin Harvick right now. So he's got a real uphill climb in these next 9 races if he's not going to win. Eric Jones, kind of the same thing, where they've shown speed, but winning a race, that's going to be tough. And then obviously Daniel Suarez already has a win. Then you got to go back outside the top 20. Maybe if Bubba had a pit crew that was capable of putting him in good situations, I'd feel comfortable about them. Chris Buescher for Roush, Fenway Keselowski Racing. He's getting there. He had a top 10 run going before the wheel came off. So there's some guys back there. Even Michael McDowell too. I'll throw him in there. He had another race this week where he showed top 10 speed. It seems like some of these guys that people were expecting to win, that line's kind of shifting back, and it's going to be real interesting to see if any of them can do anything. Just because I think a lot of us thought we'd get another one or two of these guys after Suarez won at Sonoma, and just coming out of Nashville, I feel a little differently about it.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat with you there. I was a little more optimistic we'd have a couple more winners, but I mean, I still think Reddick is a guy who can luck into one or have speed one week and maybe not have some bad luck go his way. But yeah, I'm feeling a little less optimistic about the amount of winners we'll have at the end of this season.
Yeah, Reddick, like about a month or two ago, I felt pretty good. Now I'm not so sure. So it's going to be interesting how that's all going to close out. Taking a look here at some of our picks that Mark did earlier in the week. Obviously, he had Chase winning this race, so he gets that check mark there. I had Ross Chastain, who did come home fifth. Pretty solid day. Quiet day for him, which is probably good. That means he didn't run into anybody, which is something Ross has done a little too much lately. So Marky gets a check mark there. Also, in the group picks, he had Chase in that one as well. I had Ross. That one was Larson, Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, Chase Elliott. So another check mark for him there. Next group up, Hamlin, Truex, Logano, Blaney. I had Hamlin. Mark had Truex. I think one of those could have went to us had there not been that late yellow where the Toyotas decided to pit. Unfortunately, nobody wins that one. The group with Byron, Reddick, Bell, Bowman. I had Bell. Mark had Byron. That was done pretty early in the day for Mark. Also, Bowman being there really just became a heads-up type race between Reddick and Bell. And with the issues Reddick had, that was a pretty easy win for Christopher Bell. And in the last one, that was Harvick, Kurt Busch, Chase Briscoe, and Daniel Suarez. That's a swing and a miss there for both of us. I had Harvick, Mark had Suarez. Harvick did end up getting the top 10, so he did beat Daniel, but unfortunately none of us get the check mark there. Also, in the long shot winners as well that we had pick, Chris Buescher, Ricky Stenhouse. A little bit of a disappointing day for Stenhouse, given how he ran here last year. Still managed to come home 16th, but I think we were both thinking a little bit more out of him. Chris Buescher, again, looked like he had a potential top 10 run. Looked pretty good here. Pretty good at Dover as well. Bristol, obviously, in the playoffs, but it'll be interesting to see how he could run there when we get back to a concrete track later on in the year, because he did show some speed yet again. Unfortunately, his pit crew showed a little too much speed as well and didn't tighten his wheel on his last pit stop. So, unfortunately, ruined a pretty solid day for Buescher. He ended up coming home in the 30th position, right behind Brad Keselowski, his team owner, who was involved in that incident late in the race. So, all in all, I think it was a pretty solid weekend of racing. But hey, I just wish the rain stayed away. It kind of stunk, being on the East Coast, having to stay up till about 12:30 waiting for that one to get done.
Yeah, I agree. I think overall the racing was good. The product was good. But yeah, that rain delay definitely stunk. And I think it definitely played a factor in NASCAR's decision to not waive a caution at the end, just trying to get the race done. But of course, we could speculate on that all day. But yeah, overall, I feel like that was a good race. And, seeing Chase win is always fun. And yeah, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think I was summed it up pretty well there. I know I might not have beat Marky in the picks, but just the overall betting did pretty solid there. Able to bring home some money, which was nice because we've had a pretty up and down year with our picks in terms of that. Hitting a 5-leg parlay, that definitely helps. Having Ryan Preece win, obviously, earlier in the week, that also helped as well. So pretty solid weekend on the sports book at the very least. If they didn't have that late yellow, it's probably looking a little bit better too. probably lost out on a couple of other prop bets there. But not a ton. Still a real good profitable weekend, but if Josh Bilicki doesn't blow up, we're probably looking at, a couple $100 more in the bank. So I'll take it. You got to take the wins when you can get them, and that was a pretty solid one for Chase Elliott and my sportsbook account on Sunday night. But thanks for stepping in on short notice, Mocha. Sure, if you ever want to come back, we'll gladly have you on. So,
of course, yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it. It's fun talking
awesome.
about the race, and I watch every week, so it's kind of nice being able to break it down with you.
Yeah, awesome. So anytime you're free, just let us know. We'll gladly have you back on the breakdown. Me and maybe Mark will be back. I don't know. He's going to be flying home after spending some time with some of his family members down in Southern California. So he might be back later on in the week when we preview Road America. I'm sure he wants to be there just so he could talk about Chase Elliott being the favorite and probably going to win another road course race. So I know he's probably really upset he couldn't be here tonight just to take the victory lap with Chase. But if he is back later on in the week, I'm sure he'll be bringing all the numbers to back another Chase Elliott performance like he had last year at Road America. But until next time, guys, we'll catch you around, and thanks for listening to the Bernie Breakdown. Brandon Monroe here. Thanks for listening to the Bernie Breakdown. Remember to keep listening to us on your favorite podcasting platform. And remember to follow us at Bernie Breakdown on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and all of our other social media platforms.